Okay. I think we have some technical difficulties at this moment, and I'm waiting for the person to come in. And let me just sit here and just wait until he. I'm gonna wait till the guest comes on and um, have his say. And let me see if he's on. Oh well, he must have dropped off. So let me see if he's. I'm gonna ask the guest if he wants to come back on. Let me see. Hold on. Let's see here. Let me talk. Try to see. Yeah. We're having some technical difficulties at the moment, and um, let me see. I hope he comes back. Let me see. Something's not right. I don't understand what's going on. Hopefully he'll email me and because I would like to know what his positions are. And it wasn't really planned out as I really thought it should. So anyway, let me go back to the chat room. Um, I'm gonna wait for the guest again. He was on here, and something went wrong on. So I'm gonna give the guest about five more minutes, and I'm gonna do a rundown of what he's about. So, and if he does not come on in about 5 minutes, unfortunately, I'm going to end this hangout. But let me just try to wait for him to come back and see what I'm planning on doing is is doing series of interviews um, because the 2020 election is upon us, and we already got debates and all that. So um, I would like to have somebody who's in the inside of what's going on in politics, and he is one of important people you may or might not hear. Um, his name might be pop up next year, so I'm gonna try to see if he can get back on, and let me try email him again. Let me try email him again and see if he's sure if he wants to come back on. This is kind of embarrassing, I guess. You know. Anyway, there are lots of things that we as society need to review um, concerning how society is and how society. Um, I'm not going to take any calls this was supposed to be a short interview, and looks like on his end. I'm try to email him. I'm gonna put myself on mute, and I'm gonna try to email him, and I'll be right back. Hold on. Let me try to email him and see if he fixes if his end is correct. I'll be right back. Hold on. Okay. Can you
Oh,
hear me, sir?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Please state your name, sir, and what you are for, sir.
Oh, sure. Well, thanks for having me
What's
on the show.
your
Can you hear me?
what are you running and what are you
Oh,
trying what is you trying to
yeah, sure. So thanks for
yes,
having me
I
on
can
the
hear you.
show. Uh, Appreciate that.
Go what
Yeah,
all
so
right.
I'm Ian Schlakman. I'm a Green Party candidate for president. And some of my main platform policies are that um, I feel that America, as it stands today, is an empire. And if you look back to our founding fathers, that's really something they were trying to get away from, the whole idea of America being an empire all over the world and engaged in all these treaties all over the world. So, one of the things I'm trying to do is to steer the Green Party into a direction where we recognize that America is the leading empire globally today, and that its influence is felt all over the world. And that because of that, that's why we have colonialism, imperialism, war, militarism, and why we're not really making much progress as a society here on Earth. So my campaign is 100% anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist, anti-capitalist, and socialist. And I'm for revolutionary socialism, which means that we have to immediately move to an economic system where everyone benefits across the globe, not just us here in the US, and certainly not just those in the middle class and upper class, who are really the only ones benefiting right now, as far as I'm concerned, are the billionaire capitalist class.
Okay, so how are you as a revolutionary socialist, how are you going to if you're able to win 20, how will to achieve that goal when our society is primarily capitalist? What type of plans do you have that would actually achieve to that level of what you like to see?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the reasons I wanted to run for the presidency with the Green Party is because a lot of people don't realize that the president's largest power is that he or she is in charge of the military. That's their number one duty as commander in chief to protect the country. And now a lot of people don't really realize this, but we have military bases all over the world. We are the number one largest military on the planet, and we spend more on the military than any other country out there. So we spend on budget $600 billion a year, and then we wind up probably going over $1 trillion a year, usually because there's usually some war we want to fight. We want to go into Iraq, we want to go into Afghanistan, we want to be continuing the war in Yemen, or maybe go to North Korea. So we're always adding stuff to our budget. Even if we don't actually go to war, we're often calling for a new military cruiser here, or a new strike plane here, or a new stealth bomber there. And so what we spend is just outrageous compared to other countries. No other country spends on the military like us. So you asked me, how does this relate to being a socialist? And basically, what I like to tell people and remind folks is that the US creates the market, the US creates capitalism. I know that's hard for some people to get around their head because it's sort of a new concept. But think about it like this: there are countries out there, such as Iran or Venezuela, that we actively sanction. We tell them, okay, Venezuela, even though you have oil in the ground that we want to buy because we don't like your politics, we are going to block you from selling it. Or we say to Iran, okay, we're going to literally freeze your bank accounts internationally. You can't even access your own money anymore. You're out of the banking system. So that's what we mean when we say that the US, by empire, by imperialism, actually controls internationally what gets traded and what doesn't. And that's sort of the new latest fear that I think is going on out there amongst those that are the shepherds of global empire, is Asia and China. A lot of folks want us to be more involved militarily in Asia. In fact, there's a Forbes article a couple of months ago that literally said we should be of concern because the U.S. is no longer the biggest military power in Asia. Well, last I checked, the U.S. isn't in Asia. The U.S. is in North America. So why don't we just leave Asia to the Chinese and we could deal with what we have going on here at home? But that's not really the way that the U.S. empire thinks. We want to be in control of all international trade. And that's why we conduct these like freedom of movement exercises, which basically mean that we get to trade and we get to go wherever we want, and we're going to restrict other countries from trading. Like look at our neighbor to the south, Cuba. We don't allow them to trade with other countries. Sometimes we blockade. Sometimes we actively say we can't trade with us. Sometimes we sanction them. Sometimes we don't even let families go back over there. So that's sort of the way we function internationally. And that means that we, the US, controls the market. We actually say who can trade, who can be in the system, who can't. And you know what? We could do a much better job if we actually let other countries trade and develop their own countries in a different way. And what I mean by that is, let's look at the recent hurricane that decimated the Bahamas, right? So the U.S.
Right.
sent a cargo ship down there to pick up people, but then we said the last minute, oh, wait. We just meant Americans. We only want to take Americans with proof that you can be in the country, and the rest of you all, even though your houses are gone and you're suffering, too bad. That was the Trump administration's message, and the ship left. Cuba, on the other hand, even though they are almost have no economy, they're devastated economically, they do have a lot of doctors. And so they actually did send ships full of doctors that actually help the Bahamian people get back up on their feet again and give them urgent medical care. And that's because that country is socialist, and they're revolutionary socialists. They are not practicing capitalism. They're practicing socialism right now. So that's a very different in what you see in a capitalist country versus a socialist country. And I think the commander in chief, the person that's the president, has a lot of say in how we have our markets internationally.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna switch it to domestic policy. With all
Mm-hmm.
the mass shootings, what happened in El Paso, what happened in I think in Cleveland, what happened in Charleston about what about 5 years ago. What is
Mm-hmm.
your opinion on the Second Amendment and white supremacists shooting um, brown and black people? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, okay, so El Paso, I think, really showed what some of this white nationalist agenda is all about. Because in El Paso, the shooter, clear as day, said, I'm doing this to attack brown Hispanic immigrants that are coming over the border to take my jobs. And I don't really feel like economically I have anything else to do but to go shoot up some people. Now, I think we got to take a step back and put that in perspective. A what I'm a socialist, right? So us socialists, we believe that the phase of capitalism that we're in right now, and Marx had all these phases of capitalism marked out. This particular phase is called barbarism. So that means that, let me put it to you this way. So back in the day, a young white supremacist, that hated other races, maybe he hated blacks, maybe he hated Jews, maybe he hated Hispanics, would work with capitalists to actually go to like Cuba, for example, and actually exploit the people over there. That's why the Cubans actually had their revolution. It's because capitalists of all different kinds came into their country and exploited them. I mean, your listeners should really check out some of the horrible exploitations that were done under the government before the revolutionary government. I mean, it's stuff that's so horrible I can't even mention it. But legitimate hotels that still exist today were condoning just mass exploitation of the Cuban people. I'm talking like, I mean, I'll just say a couple of crazy things off the top of my head, like not just exploitation in terms of trade, taking resources. Um, that's where we get the term banana republic. It literally means a company like Dole is actually in charge at the will of the Americans and their empire, and that they are exploiting people and making them work 24-hour shifts dying, and then taking resources from the country instead of feeding people there. They actually just send the produce back to the U.S. But also, hotel chains were doing things that would be illegal in America right now. I'm talking about, I don't know, I'll say this, but I'll just say it. I hope it isn't, live, um,
Yeah,
very
it's
racist
live.
shows. Yeah, I mean, like I don't want to say it on your show, but people really need to check that out
Right.
because there's been some very interesting things that happen down there. So that's sort of the capitalist exploitation model. And because so if this young El Paso shooter was alive maybe 100 years ago, back in the 1920s, and he's got this racial hate, and he knows that white people are superior, and he's out there, and he wants to take advantage of them and may become a millionaire himself, he would just work with wealthy industrialists and say, you all stay in the US, I'll go down there and deal with these lower class folks, and I'll exploit the hell out of them and make a ton of money, and we'll all be rich. That's what was happening 100 years ago. Nowadays, big banks and stuff have their talents into every single aspect of the world. They really don't do that kind of thing anymore. Where they're actually going to charter younger folks to take over being the capitalist class. The capitalist class is, the middle class is shrinking. It's going down to the size of nothing. And a lot of that has to do with this racial hate that you see coming out of white communities, because they're quickly realizing that their preferred jobs are being taken away from them. I mean, look at DC, where I live in Baltimore, but a lot of the work that went into building up the DC, a lot of jobs that were carved out by unions, police officers, firefighters, people that paved the street and stuff like that, were jobs that only whites could have, and that they would literally drive maybe 90 minutes in all the way from Delaware to Virginia, to West Virginia, and they would take those jobs because that's the way that's the way it worked under early capitalism. But now in late capitalism, the system's already set, the roads are already paved, the people are already exploited. So a young white supremacist just finds themselves in a situation where all they could do is just start shooting. I mean, but what's really important to understand is that capitalism was built on this supremacy mentality. Someone always needs to be exploited in capitalism. And oftentimes that's why it's a haven for racists. Racists, especially white racists, love capitalism because it allows them to exploit folks and say, well, I'm just giving them a job. Look, they would do nothing if I wasn't here. They'd be primitive and uncivilized. So that's been the way that capitalism has functioned throughout history. And I think it's come back today full circle because capitalism can no longer sustain itself, which is why you see things like the El Paso shooting. Now, let me be very clear about this. I think the answer here is socialism, because I think that fundamentally capitalism causes us to think other folks that don't have jobs or that don't have as good a job as me, or I should have that job, I should be in that college, that person shouldn't, is sort of the scarcity mindset of capitalism, and that's the problem. I think it enables racists, people that have that racial hate in their heart, to then, start to rationalize all kinds of crazy stuff, and that's where I think the El Paso shooter got his ideology came from.
Okay. Okay. Next question I'm going to ask you.
Mhm.
Since the Green Party, I've been following y'all. I'm not really a Green Party fan. No, I wouldn't say I'm not really. Uh, but I heard, I read on how on one of your candidates named Howie Hawkins. He talked about the green new around in your political party for about 12 years. I'm assuming.
Mhm.
So, what is your opinion on Alexander Cortez' new Green Deal? And since that she's a Democrat out of New York, how does your the Green Party's new Green New Deal, how is that different from Alexander Cortez's version of the Green New Deal?
Okay, that's a good question. So the Green New Deal sort of has a pretty long history because it actually originally came from Europe. The Greens are in power in Europe. We actually work with other governments in Europe all the time. And now Mr. Hawkins, one of the first folks, start talking about it a couple of years ago in a New York race. And now I think it's become. Then Joe Stein ran on it, twice. So it's definitely become a very clear and powerful piece of narrative for the Green Party. So the Green New Deal has a lot of different variations, and it's really important to understand that. Um, I could say this about the Democrats' version of the Green New Deal. The Democrats' version of the Green New Deal is just a resolution in Congress. It's not actually designed to be a law. Essentially, the Democratic Party snuffed it out. They basically said, we are never going to let you pass a law that actually has elements of the Green New Deal in it. Because the Green New Deal is basically um, it's a, it's, it's a, it's a piece of legislation that would massively overhaul many different parts of the energy grid and our economy in order to make it greener, but also to make sure there's jobs for people as well. So it's definitely a piece of legislation that's worth looking at. But what you see that Congresswoman Cortez did was she had to go along with the Democratic establishment, and by that she had to basically gut it. So first of all, it's toothless. I mean, it's not really a bill that'll ever actually do anything. Second of all, the committee, the Green New Deal, the Climate Change Committee, cannot actually do anything. It doesn't really have any power. And then third, the actual pieces that she's talking about, it's I mean, I think Congresswoman Cortez said it best when asked about Nancy Pelosi's take on it. Because Nancy Pelosi famously, Speaker Pelosi said, the Green New Deal that AOC is promoting is a pie in the sky, wishful thinking thing, and it's never going to happen. And then AOC had to spin it because it's her party and had to say, well, she's basically saying it's a dream project. It's amazing. It's the future. It's a vision of the future. Yeah, I don't think that the Green New Deal the Democrats are pitching um, is really going to have a shot. And I also don't really feel that the Green New Deal the Democrats are pitching is going to be comprehensive. A big component of the Green New Deal that all Greens really recognize is that it has to be comprehensive. You can't just say, let's just do energy grid replacement. So let's just stop relying on fossil fuels, and then not do the part that says, well, you have to employ people to actually build the solar panels and install them. You have to employ people to actually get rid of the underground oil pipelines and switch over to wind. I mean, you have to actually employ folks to do this. It's a big, massive project, the Green New Deal. And, frankly, we're running out of time for it. I think that's why you see a lot of folks like the Extinction Rebellion finally taking action. And I'm glad they're rallying around the Green New Deal and a comprehensive one. But really, scientists are telling us that if we don't completely change our economy very, very quickly, if we don't move immediately to an economy that's based on clean, renewable energy and consume far less, that we are really going to screw this planet up for future generations, and it may become uninhabitable altogether. So that's sort of where we are. I think you'll see a diversity of opinions on the Green New Deal. If you look at all the Green Party candidates now, there's also another young man running for office named Dario Hunter, who's actually running on a economic bill of rights. There's another man named Chad Wilson running on a Green New Guarantee. My campaign is supportive of the Green New Deal, but we recognize that we're almost out of time on this Green New Deal, and we need immediate economic revolution today.
Okay, and okay. Then my question would be, the follow-up question would be, how long do you think that how long that you personally and many people of your political party, how long do y'all think the time period for what y'all believe is the, because y'all saying that calamities will happen. How long would y'all think that might happen or
Yeah,
will
I
happen?
mean, scientists are saying that it's happening at a far faster rate than they really imagined. Some have said look for environmental catastrophe in the next 20 years. Some folks have said in the next 10, and then I think most recently we're seeing 5 years. But I don't think that that's a good way to look at it. I think a better way to look at it would be to see what's actually happening around us and to actually take action. because the forest fires that we're seeing out in California. I mean, just today. So let me put two headlines together for you because this is the way I see it. Out in California, they had to literally turn off power for a group of folks that live near forests because they don't want to risk creating forest fires from sparks coming from electrical poles and stuff like that. That is something that's
Right.
happening here in the U.S. Meanwhile, all the way over on the side of the world, I think it was in Iraq, they're talking about how they have to turn the electricity off at certain times during the day because they just don't have enough power to keep everyone afloat for 24 hours a day. And that's a reality for a lot of folks in developing nations around the world. So I think that look at what happened in Florida multiple times, multiple hurricanes decimating Florida. Look at the Bahamas. I mean, the Bahamas may not be coming back. Certain islands may just be done. That's just reality. Puerto Rico still has not fully recovered. A lot of that has to do with political pressure, but still hasn't happened. Waterways were moved. Like one of the reasons Flint still doesn't have clean water is because they actually had to switch water access, and part of that was done for cost reasons, but another part of that was done because you have to choose which area is going to get clean water, which area is going to get crappy water. So I mean, a
Oh,
lot of these environmental realities are there. A lot of these environmental problems are happening today, and I think folks are finally starting to put two and two together and recognize that this is something we have to take very seriously and make immediate action on. And capitalism isn't going to be the
oh,
solution. We're not going to buy our way out of this.
okay. I'm glad that like you brought up Flint, Michigan, but I noticed in your home state of Maryland that
Yeah,
no, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it wasn't Maryland. In New York, New Jersey, where Cory Booker is at, um, they're having water issues, and it's been going on for 30 years. And now I heard that their water is very polluted, and
yeah,
pipes are pipes have been old as since I don't know the 1880s, been
right.
rotting, and them lead pipes are now poisoning people in Newark, New Jersey. So what is your take on what happened in Newark, what happened in Flint,
Right.
and I'm thinking somewhere else I want to say somewhere in the South that's been going on. What's your take on that? On
Well,
water?
it's
Uh,
yeah. I mean, it's happened in Baltimore as well, where I'm from. So
right.
yeah. I mean, basically, we have pipes. If you talk to some of the maintenance workers out here, they'll tell you that some of our pipes were built, yeah, as before the 19th century, and they were actually wooden, like literally, are wooden pipes. Are some of the things we're still using under the city of Baltimore there. And you know what? I mean, Newark is. I'm so glad you mentioned Newark because a lot of folks don't know that Newark also has a water crisis. We're actually going to be heading to Newark. Looks like October 24th, pretty soon. So I can tell your audience about that. Um, but yeah, a lot of these areas, and not really a surprise. A lot of these areas are majority black cities. I'm just going to say it and put it out there. Are chronically underinvested in. And in fact, I think Baltimore is a great example because Baltimore does not have unsafe drinking water everywhere. The only place we have provenly unsafe drinking water where we've actually turned off the water fountains and we have to give the kids uh, 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 bottled water is the city school system, the Baltimore City public school system. Now, most of the kids in Baltimore that attend the public school system are mostly poor. Some of them are middle class, and they're easily majority black. Now, most of the affluent and white kids wind up going to a private school. So people don't. In Baltimore, it's black and white. I mean, literally, if you are poor and living on the wrong side of town, you do not have clean drinking water when you go to school. But if you're able to afford a private school, then you're safe. You don't have to worry about that when your kid goes to school. So I mean, but investment in infrastructure really is the root cause of that problem. Many cities, just including Detroit itself, have just not seen investment in infrastructure. If anything, they are literally tearing down parts of cities, turning them into like golf courses or big public parks, or just handing them over for a dollar housing program to anyone that'll buy them. But they're really not investing at all in urban infrastructure, unless there's a capitalist reason to do so, unless they're going to get a return on their investment. I mean, we see so many high-rise apartment complexes in Baltimore just go dark because a big capitalist will buy the building, like a big bank, and they'll want to rent for like $1,700 or one bedroom, and because they can't get that rent, they'll just wait. They'll literally just wait and see if rich people move into the neighborhood, and then if they're able to get that rate, then they'll rehab and put people in it. If not, the houses just stay dark until someone buys up the whole area and turns it into like a rich, affluent area with a Starbucks and stuff.
Yeah,
So that,
and that's basically gentrification is what
yeah,
you're
that's
saying.
right.
That's
Hmm.
how gentrification works.
Exactly.
So, and right, and would your Green New Deal, would that cover the pipes in Burke and Flint? Would that cover that as well, or that's just a separate issue in
Oh,
your?
oh yeah, it would. It would. It would. Yeah. One of the best parts about the Green New Deal is that it does focus on infrastructure. And in fact, it needs so much infrastructure investment that it actually calls for a jobs program. So actually all this infrastructure needs to be updated, right? I mean, it hasn't been updated in years, maybe 100 years. So the Green New Deal would actually call for a federal jobs program, probably coupled with a citywide jobs program where you would actually be able to sign up at a local office and they would tell you where you need to go to start fixing up infrastructure in your city, in your town, in your state. Maybe that means they're gonna, need you to build a new electric line coming from a solar power farm into the city. Maybe the sewers and lay some new pipe. It could mean anything. But the fact of the matter is that the Green New Deal would address that, and there'd be a whole jobs program, a jobs guarantee, we actually call it, that would address that. And I'm for making sure that happens. I also want something called the basic income guarantee. A basic income guarantee is something that Martin Luther King talked about, and it's specifically like $1,000 a month that you would get just to make sure you can pay your bills. And it doesn't mean you can pay all your bills with it, but it would at least help eradicate a lot of poverty out there. But in addition to that, a jobs guarantee is a great idea because then if you know you're guaranteed a job and you know you're guaranteed $1,000 a month, let's say you can't work that month, you need that money, then we could eliminate poverty in this country in a generation. I mean, seriously, we could eliminate poverty immediately if we enacted these programs.
Okay, I'm glad that you brought that up, and this is going to be a two-part. What is the difference
Hmm.
between what you said about your $1,000 to each citizen? How would your plan on that work versus Andrew Yang's um, 1,000 a month idea? How would your plan and his I plan differ, and where are the similarities?
Yeah,
And
that's a
the
great
second,
question. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, okay, and I'll tell you what. I asked you to set the second part later on. I'm gonna let you answer this one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, I've been working on a basic income guarantee for a long time. When I ran for Congress in 2014 with the Green Party, I threw it out there as one of my platform pieces. Because the Green Party championed it, and I thought it was a good idea. And a lot of folks immediately latched onto it and said, "Wow, this is a great idea. We want to hear more about this." So I work with some groups, Basic Income, Earth Network, and uh, a couple other folks that do national work on a basic income guarantee. And we started to talk a little bit about what are the plans out there. Like technically, Alaska has a basic income guarantee where because of the oil they drill from the ground, they give that profit back to everyone. It's a small stipend, but it's something. So we don't really do that in the other parts of the country. So how could we implement that? So Andrew Yang's plan I know he's been thinking about this for a while, and I've met him and I talked to him about this. Is $1,000 a month, and if you want to keep your existing social services, whatever you would call welfare, even though welfare doesn't really exist
Right.
anymore. I hate people say that, but I'll just throw that out there. If you want to keep your existing disability or social security, whatever you want to keep, you can. Um, if you don't want the $1,000 a month, because when you get that $1,000 a month, it might disqualify you from food stamps, for example, or TANF. Now,
Right. Right.
my plan is different. I've worked with a lot of social workers, including an organization that I've gotten a lot of support from called National Welfare Rights. My campaign manager, Reverend Annie Chambers, she's a member. She's one of the original presidents of National Welfare Rights. They actually marched with Martin Luther King back in the '60s, and I was recently honored to march with her and Reverend Jesse Jackson and the two co-organizers of the Poor People's Campaign just the last year. And we actually called for exactly the same thing again, a basic income guarantee, along with a lot of other programs to help the poor immediately. But anyway, the reason my program is different is because we would call for $1,000 a month, but we would say that it would not count towards any welfare programs. So the government can't come back and say, well, you got the $1,000 a month now, so we're kicking you off of all these other programs. No, we're not saying that in my version. In my version, you would keep whatever programs you're on if you want to. A lot of people don't want to. I understand that because, I've been to social services office. And, it's horrible. Like they treat you like dirt. A lot of times they make you get drug tested. It takes forever to get any benefits from them. You have to challenge them 2, 3 times. It's totally a horrible experience. But in case you do want to, and you already have something coming in, maybe you need that extra TANF money for your family. Maybe you need those extra food stamps. Well, you could still keep that in my plan. In fact, my plan would not even count towards taxes. So, in fact, you would not be raised to another tax bracket. Like you're not suddenly middle class because you got this $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month is just for you to get on your feet and help you out a little bit. And even when it comes to Social Security, you wouldn't. I think that's both my plan and Yang's plan, but that wouldn't affect Social Security at all. It would be pre-tax and pre-income. So that's a really big difference right there. And we like to call it like a socialist basic income guarantee because a lot of the economic theories I do are based on socialist policies versus capitalist policies. And that's my, I like Andrew Yang. I've met him a couple times. He's a nice guy, but he's clearly a capitalist. I think he gets the problems, but he's got a capitalist solution. I have a socialist solution. So that's a big difference between me and Andrew Yang.
Okay. Okay. And part two to my question was, okay, there is a movement among within Black America, well, in some sectors of Black America, asking for reparations, and you have certain organizations like Cobra, you got you got the ADOS.
Mm-hmm.
What is your opinion on reparations for African Americans or descendants of African slaves, American slaves who was here? What's your opinion on that?
It's funny. I've worked with some folks in the that I think come out of the Uhuru movement. So Uhuru to anyone listening out there that's in the movement. And a lot of times when I talk about a basic income guarantee, I get people that are excited about that because they feel like um, the country's never going to give them reparations. So at least a basic income guarantee would be the next best thing. Now, that's not my opinion. I want to be very clear about that. I am 100% for reparations. Quite a few Green Party candidates are as well. And I've actually signed on to a joint statement initially created by Ms. Sitanam Curry, who was also running for the Green Party nominee, and another man named Dennis Lambert about reparations and why I feel they're so important. I myself am Jewish. There have been different kinds of reparations given to the Jewish community post the Nazi regime. Even slave owners got reparations when they had to free their slaves. The government, the U.S. government, gave them reparations to make them whole again once they had to, free their slaves. So it's very important that we understand that reparations can be done. I don't think that folks need to just say, let's go for another program. I think they can be done, and I think they should be done. Now, the way that I would do them is I would actually make sure that we have what's called a committee. I think that's very important. Canada's done something like this for its native people. And what the Truth and Reconciliation will
Right.
do, committee, is to be a national committee that would actually say, here is the legacy of slavery, here's the economic impact that we could all agree on from a national level. And then at that point in time, similar to what the Jewish community did, we're going to need national leaders to step up from the black community and say, okay, this is what's going to happen with the money. And I'm always for folks, individuals and families actually getting the money directly. That's my personal preference. That's not what happened with a lot of the Jewish communities. A lot of the Jewish communities that got reparations got them through foundations and organizations. So that's up to you all in the black community. For people that are viewing this, I'm not black, so I don't have a say in that. But I will support whatever that Truth and Reconciliation Committee comes up with, and I would support giving that money directly as cash to descendants of slaves. And the same thing would be true for folks of native descent. I mean, this is all stolen native land. We can't even measure the impact there, but I think we should try and make sure those folks are made whole as much as possible.
Okay, so with that, I do agree with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because that was something similar to what Nelson Mandela did in South Africa.
Right.
That was similar to what let me see, somebody in it was some other African nation. I want to say Liberia also did it,
Hmm.
and think it was also in, I want to say Nigeria also have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and also in Canada as well. So are you is your vision is something closer to what Nelson Mandela was trying to do with his, or was it like commission or committee on
No, it's not
Truth and
like Canada.
Reconciliation?
It's definitely closer to what you saw in African countries, because we're actually talking about the goal of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee would not be to just say, here's how bad the legacy was, and then write a documentation to have the president sign it and apologize. That's not the goal. The goal is to make folks whole that were that are descendants of slavery, that were obviously economically impacted by decades of slavery, and then the following Reconstruction era and other racially biased things this country has done. So the point would be that we would come up with with a number, a physical number of how much economically we're talking needs to be given back to the descendants of slaves. And then at that point, it would just be up to the black community as a whole. And this is going to probably be the difficult part. I don't think coming up with the number is going to be the difficult part. I think that I think I've even seen some scholars, and I'm not an expert on this, come up with certain numbers already. I think the problem is going to be getting folks to agree on what the remedy should be. And I would be for personally given literal reparations of cash to descendants. But I understand that that's not everyone's point of view. And like I said, that's not what happened in the Jewish community. And it was before my time. It was before I was even born, when folks decided how to spend money that was given to them from former Nazis and stuff like that. So that I think is going to be the problem, and I'd be happy to help any way I can. But I'd be happy to have that committee, housed and supported by the White House if I was the president. I think that's a big change in direction from what you see from other candidates running in other parties. I mean, almost every candidate that's Democrat has to kind of give lip service to treating all the races fairly, quote unquote. And I think that in the Green Party, you see this a little different. I've mentioned Sidanam Curry. I'll mention Dario Hunter, who actually is running on an economic people of color's Bill of Rights. So I mean, that's a pretty big difference. I think that you get with most of the candidates in the Green Party versus most of the candidates in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I have. emailed Mr. Hunter, and I was trying, and I hadn't received no email from him, so I was going to sit there and see what what his perspective is, on it too. But I'm glad that you mentioned it. So like Mr. Hunter, your opponent or your fellow candidate, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
he has
Absolutely.
a minority bill of rights or a black
Mm-hmm.
bill of rights, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's right.
All right, then I appreciate, sir.
I said that's right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm gonna do some research on his minority bill of rights or black bill of rights, and I'm gonna see what what it is in his platform, and hopefully one day I'll have him on, and maybe I might have you on as
Mm-hmm.
well if y'all want to have a little mini debate or what would have you uh for
Sure.
further
Yeah.
down the line if that's what if you're up to that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, all right then. Well, anyway, Ivan, tell everybody what is your name because I new people coming in and out. So what's your name and because I'm about to close up here. What's your closing words though? I'll put it like that.
Sure, sure, sure. Well, it's my name is Ian Schlakman, and I am a Green Party candidate for president. The Green Party is right now in the middle of its primary. I'd say we're probably in the beginning stages of our primary. There are some other folks that have said they may enter the race still, but I mean, I'm very proud of the current group of candidates running because I mean, I think we're running on some very solid issues right now. And I'm really glad to see us get some attention. So I appreciate you having me on the show today because I think that the Green Party has an economic agenda that is more into restorative justice, racial justice, economic rights for everyone. But also, me personally, which I think differentiates me from other folks running, is I have that revolutionary socialist attitude where the problems that we have been trying to drip, 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 chisel away at for years through small reforms, I think it's finally time. And I think younger folks like myself, I'm a millennial, are realizing this that we've got to paint with a bigger brush and get all this stuff done quickly. We don't have time to sit around and wait for small little changes to be made that'll fix small things. We've got to fix everything quickly. And the reason we talk like that is because every system and institution is sort of failing us right now. We're not tackling climate change
Right,
fast enough. We've got wars going on all over the world. We have nationalism, and white nationalism is on the rise. So all of these things are connected. They're all affected by each other, and capitalism is really putting the gasoline on the fire and making this far worse than it has to be. So that's why revolutionary socialism, where we actually stand with each other in solidarity, we understand that the world is a dangerous place, and every country's got to help make it a better one. And we don't just rely on, oh, can this country make me money? Can these people make me money? No, I don't want to deal with them. That's the attitude of empire. That's the attitude of colonialism. You know, we don't help people around the world that are poor because we don't help people around the world here that are homeless because there's no money to make. You can't charge a homeless person for a bed, and I can't charge someone sleeping on the streets, halfway across the world, to help them. So a capitalist country and a capitalist society is never going to see a value in those people and always just kick on them and want to exploit them. My campaign is all about uplifting people all over the world and doing it in a way of solidarity, not saying I'm the smartest guy in the room, America's the best, we're going to help everyone. It's saying that my liberation is tied up in your liberation. Any day now, me here in Baltimore, a tornado could go through, something dangerous could happen, an earthquake, and I may be in a situation where I need people, from all over the world to come help us. That's the kind of mentality we have in this campaign. And if you head over to schlakman.com, that's SCHLAKMAN.com, you could check out more of my agenda and see more of stuff like this. And we actually have a crowdsourced platform. So if anyone in your audience didn't hear something today or they want to add something on my platform, go over to schlakman.com and click foreign policy, domestic policy, and you can literally add whatever you'd like to my platform, and we will evaluate it, get back to you, and we'll add it.
all right. Sir, Ivan, I appreciate you for dropping by and answering my email at a because I emailed you and you said, man, you're gonna be ready, and I said, well, let me just put you on real quick. So anyway, I appreciate you for dropping by, Ivan, and I appreciate it. And good luck on your adventure to the White House. So
Thanks so
anyway,
much. I really appreciate it.
yeah, yes, sir. Take care,
All
sir.
right. Take care too. Bye bye now.
Bye bye.